What is up, sports gaming fans? Chris Jardine here, aka SnaggleJ, with a brand new podcast, the Virtual Athlete Podcast, where we are going to be focusing on sports, video gaming, news, and opinion. In this premiere episode of the show, we are going to talk about some Madden 19 thoughts. We're going to take a look ahead to some sports games that I am particularly excited about. Cough, NHL 19. Cough. Ooh. And we're going to dissect MLB The Show 18 by looking at, is the franchise in trouble? And also, I'm going to name 5 things that I think they could improve in the franchise mode for MLB The Show 19. If you are listening to this podcast on my YouTube channel, please hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit the little bell to enable the notifications for when we post a new episode. We are definitely going to be looking at getting this podcast on to pod-catching apps very soon. But for anyone who's ever done that, there are some things to iron out there. So that may be a few episodes before we get into that. The plan right now is we're going to post a brand new episode every week, sometime around the Tuesday/Wednesday time frame. So let's jump right in and let's talk about Madden NFL 19, which has been out now for over a month. If you played it on the Origin Premier PC version, you've been playing it since August 1st. I've been spending the primary amount of my time on the PS4 version. I have played a little bit on PC as well, but I've been spending most of my time on the PS4 version. And I have to say, I'm a big fan of the subtle changes that they have made going from 18 to 19. I definitely feel like there are still some tweaks to work out in terms of the RPM motion system and like animations and stuff. I still feel like you get some weird canned animations from time to time, which is not uncommon for a Madden game, especially when you're trying to move 22 sprites around the field and do it effectively to replicate a game of football. But I feel like overall RPM has been a nice addition to the game. There are some wonderfully captured moments, and a lot of them revolve around the running game, when a running back will make a very nice cut through a hole, and you just look at it and you go back and you watch the replay in slow motion, and you're just, you're taken aback by how realistic the movement is and how good it looks. Those moments do happen. They are really eye-popping moments. But overall, I feel like, the biggest complaint about the Madden series has been, the graphics are the same every year. But I feel like there is a noticeable 18 to 19 difference. And again, with the animations and the RPM, I feel like there's some tweaking to do there still. But overall, I feel like it's a positive. I've been spending the majority of my time with the game in franchise mode. We have been running a Seahawks franchise that is now, as the time I'm recording this, set to start season 3. There have been some issues, some legacy issues in franchise. Things like having difficulty signing coaches, where you'll go to make an offer to a coach and then you'll back out and it'll show that the coach has signed with you. And there's a few issues there that, were in 18 that are still in 19. The sim stats are okay. They're not great. They're not spot on by any stretch of the imagination. They still are a little too pass heavy. Running quarterbacks don't actually run. There's not anywhere near enough made and attempted field goals. But in the most recent patch that they just released, which is just yesterday, I believe, which would be Monday, September 10th, there were some improvements made. Now, I have seen some people reporting on Twitter. I haven't had a chance to dive into it myself, but I've seen some people reporting on Twitter that it hasn't really done much to fix the SimStat engine. So here's hoping that it's something that they'll be able to work around and fix. Again, overall, it's pretty good, but if you're looking for like SimStat realism, you're not going to get it, especially in some of the areas that I mentioned before. But some of the improvements that they have made in the franchise, that I have touted on stream many, many times, and I continue to pump the tires on them, is the introduction of schemes and the way you progress your players now with archetypes instead of just using straight up XP. So let's talk about the schemes first. Your teams will have schemes based on your coaches and your playbooks that you run, and your players will be rated on an overall system based on how they fit in your scheme. So I will use an example from our franchise. We have Bryce Love, who we drafted in the 2019 NFL draft. He is an elusive running back. As an elusive running back, he is an 81 overall, or maybe an 82 now. But as a power running back, he is a 64 overall. So a lot of people have disregarded these and have said, okay, you know what, that doesn't really matter. I'm going to use the guy. But if you try to take Bryce Love and run him between the tackles like a power back, you are going to fail, and you're going to fail miserably. He's an elusive back. He's meant to be running tosses and sweeps and getting screen passes, get the ball in his hands, let his agility and his finesse moves and things like that, let his jukes and spins do the work. That is what he is best at. So when you look at those particular types of players and whether they fit your scheme or not, it's not so much, hey, this guy's a good fit for your team. It's, hey, is this guy a good fit for the way you play the game? If you are a smash mouth, run it down the middle kind of guy, Bryce Love is someone you want to avoid. So really what it does is it adds another wrinkle to managing your franchise, which you guys know is something that I advocate for on the regular. Give me different ways and different wrinkles for me to manage my franchise. Now that rolls into the player archetypes and how you improve your players. So previously, if you guys will remember, players accrued XP on a weekly basis, and then when you could use that XP to put it into specific, player attributes, so like speed or catching or whatnot. Now your upgrades are based on archetypes. So when a player gets enough XP to level up, you are able to look at the different archetypes for that player's position, and then by picking an archetype, it will upgrade the overall of that archetype by 1 and will affect a group of attributes that are tied to that archetype. So what that allows you to do is that allows you to, say, build well-rounded players. So if you have an offensive lineman who's a power guy, it allows you to maybe build them into an agile guy as well, giving you kind of like a dual threat, more well-rounded offensive lineman. But on the other side of the coin, it lets you take somebody like a wide receiver who is a speed deep threat and just really put them into a one-sided archetype where they are only a deep threat and they can't do anything else. So again, it gives you that wrinkle when you're managing your franchise. You have to look at it every time it comes up and say, okay, what is the most effective way for me to upgrade this player? Is it to put it into, because here's the thing, if you put all your players into a one-sided archetype, so let's say we keep building Bryce Love into a giant elusive back, and then we start getting away from that in games and we want to make a switch to a more power-based offense, he's not going to be useful to our team. He's going to be maybe a Tavon Austin, trick kind of player that we can run out there and put the ball in their hands and hope they do something. But on the overall, we have valued him highly at what he does, but we've devalued him because we're not playing into what he's good at. So again, EA Sports is giving GMs and coaches, different ways to look at how you're going to build your team. And inherently, I feel like that ties into the draft. The draft is really the same, with the obvious big exception that you can edit draft classes now, which we have done in our franchise. We used a real-life draft class in the first season, and we used a creative prospect draft class in the second season. But what that's done is the draft, which remains largely unchanged otherwise, is that allows you to look for more value in the draft. You may find a wide receiver in the 4th round whose primary stat is deep route, and that's the kind of scheme that he fits well with. That's the kind of scheme that you run. You may get more value out of that player in the 4th round than you would in previous versions of the game, where you're really just looking at their 3 attributes and their combine score and saying, okay, like, I think this guy could be a good overall. Again, this pushes into the fact that overalls are really irrelevant. And they have been in sports games, especially in franchise modes, for some time. You need to be, anyone who's a hardcore franchise mode, franchise nation enthusiast is looking well beyond the overalls of a player and looking at, what they could do. Again, you can have 2 players who play the same position who are 80 overall, and one player has, better hit power, better zone coverage, better speed, and you put that guy in zone a lot and looking for someone with pop in his bat and fast guy, and you could have another guy who's the same overall, but those attributes could be less. He's a more average, well-rounded player, and they just don't fit your team as well. So again, I feel like EA's done a good job of giving us some different ways to manage our teams. They've made some tweaks to how things work recently, again, in this patch that came out just in the last 24 to 48 hours. Now, when your player wins a weekly player of the week, you're going to get a little notification in your to-do, which I think is kind of cool. Also, when players have upgrades now, you're going to get a notification in your to-do, which I think is kind of cool, especially if you're simulating. That saves you going to the depth chart and having to look through it. But to come back to the original point, I've really been enjoying my time with Madden 19. I've been having a lot of fun with it. I've been having a lot of fun with it on stream. I still feel like overall the franchise experience is maybe a little stale. I know a large percentage of people would rather see more owner-based stuff. I don't even look at that stuff. I'm looking at the nuts and bolts of managing my franchise, and in that regard, EA Sports has made some nice upgrades with the archetypes and the schemes to really keep me interested and really get me more invested in my team than in previous years. So for me, Madden 19, for my experience so far, has been awesome. I definitely think it's going to put itself in the conversation for Sports Game of the Year, which is another topic for another day. But like I said, I'm really enjoying Madden 19. How are you guys feeling about Madden 19? I don't really want to dive too much into Madden Ultimate Team. I have spent some time in Madden Ultimate Team, but I'm not really going to dive too much into that right now. Again, that's something that we're probably going to talk about next week or the week after, is kind of do a dissection of where Ultimate Team is right now. But let me know down in the comments below how you guys are enjoying Madden 19, what mode are you spending the majority of your time with, and how do you feel about the Madden NFL 19 brand right now. Speaking of franchise modes and upgrades, that brings me to my next thing, and that is how excited I am about NHL 19. Now, as I'm recording this, the Legend Edition of NHL 19 is currently available and playable as it is Tuesday at about 8 p.m. local time. So people are out playing it. I personally am not picking up the Legend Edition of NHL because I don't play Hockey Ultimate Team. So that for me is a waste of funds that I otherwise don't have. But if you guys have followed me on Twitter for the last few weeks, you guys will know that my excitement level for NHL 19 is through the roof when it comes to the franchise / expansion component. My biggest complaint about NHL 18 was how the scouting added nothing to the mode. No personality. The drafts were terrible. If you didn't draft in the first couple of picks, you weren't getting anybody that was ever going to make an impact in your franchise. For anyone who's a serious franchise mode person, story and intrigue and personality are 3 things that keep you going through the mode. If I feel attached to my team, I have no problem playing another season after we miss the playoffs or after we, lose a heartbreaking playoff series, because I'm emotionally invested now. And NHL 18 did not do that. You built your expansion team or you took over your franchise, and as you lost players, you had no draft picks to fill them in. There was no personality to the scouting. You didn't feel any attachment to any players you were drafting. So the longevity goes down because you don't feel that emotional attachment. Well, with the way they've redone the scouting, and I've watched enough content to know that this is going to be an amazing addition. But they fixed the one big gripe that I had about the franchise. You still have expansion mode. You can create your team from scratch. You can go in and pick your favorite team and start with a regular franchise mode and then move the team later on if you like. There is still a lot of movement and stuff within the mode. The trade aspects and everything are still there from last year, but they've revamped the way scouting works, which is awesome. So now you have a team of scouts that you assign to regions. And as you go through regions, you uncover players and scout them and learn more about them and scout them multiple times. And then there's also a fog of war element. So for example, if you draft a guy that you didn't have fully scouted, he actually has to go to one of your affiliates or to your NHL club and play a few games before you're actually going to get some of his ratings revealed, which is awesome and really replicates real life. If I go and draft a player that I know nothing about, I know nothing about him. No one's going to come and hand me a scouting report and says, well, this guy can do these things. You have to learn those things. And the fog of war element also applies to other NHL teams. So, for example, if you're getting towards the trade deadline and you're 3 points out of a playoff spot and you need a top flight right winger to complement your top 6 forwards, you can actually go out and scout NHL level right wingers to find someone who fits in your team. Learn everything you can. Your scout's going to go and watch that player play. Just like in real life, again, you have pro scouts, you have amateur scouts. As they said in the informational package, the scouting itself is almost enough to be a mode. It's that involved. I'm super excited and super hyped to jump in. I was really impressed with some of the things I saw in the beta. I really enjoyed the ones mode. I thought that was a lot of fun. We may play that on stream here and there, but it's not going to be like a mainstay of my channel or anything like that. I felt the skating was a little more fluid. I feel like 5-on-5 from watching people stream, a 5-on-5 game of hockey looks amazing right now with the way penalties are being called and the strategies and the stats that are being generated. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what kind of experience that people are going to have with NHL 19. Like I said, I'm super hyped. You just have to go look at my Twitter feed and see how hype I am for this game. And you know what? In a few episodes of this, I'll definitely be taking a deeper look maybe after a month. Next week's episode, we may take a quick look, just a quick, hey, these are some 3 ups and 3 downs that I've noticed so far. But we're definitely going to do a deep dive review a few episodes down the road for NHL 19. So last but not least here on the premiere episode of the Virtual Athlete Podcast, let's jump into the main topic that we're going to cover this evening, and that is the state of MLB The Show. Is MLB The Show in trouble? Is the franchise heading for a downward spiral? The answer to those questions is no. With lack of true competition, MLB The Show has the market sewn up. RBI baseball is not true competition. The game is a travesty of the sport of baseball, in my opinion. And I have spent time with RBI baseball's most recent version because it's available on the Switch, and I don't enjoy the experience. I know some people do, but I'm more of a simulation baseball purist. Out of the Park Baseball, and full disclosure, I'm the assistant community, I don't even know my own job title. I'm the associate community manager of Out of the Park Baseball, so I have some skin in the game, but Out of the Park Baseball is not competition. First of all, it's available on PC and Mac. Second of all, it is a true sports simulation, not a graphical-based button-pushing baseball game. And while I enjoy the hell out of the Park Baseball, it leaves a void that I fill with MLB The Show when it comes to head-to-head play and things like that. So MLB The Show is no true competition. And until that gets rectified, the game will continue to do well. The game continues to do well this year. It's still a top-selling sports title. It's still a top-selling overall game for Sony. It still does very, very big numbers. But that doesn't mean that there are not some troubling signs for the game. Most of the major content creators have moved on. Now, we're in the high water mark of baseball season. We're about to hit the postseason. Now, that's not necessarily indicative of MLB The Show being in trouble. There are some fantastic games in both sports and non-sports genres available right now. Madden is out. NHL is out. Spider-Man is out. I mean, and that's just the three that, I could think of off the top of my head. There's many, many, many high-quality games. NBA Live, NBA 2K. I could go to my Twitch Rolodex and look at what people are streaming, and it's a wide-ranging, diverse, scene. Call of Duty Black Ops, the Battle Royale beta is out right now. People are playing a wider range of games. And I had a conversation with some people on Twitter earlier today just saying, you know what? I've seen a lot of, I don't want to use the term one-trick ponies, but let's say people whose main game was MLB The Show have attempted to diversify their streams because they get bored and they want to expand their community. They want to go beyond the walls of baseball. They want to stream other things. They want to stream Madden. They want to stream NHL. They want to stream action-adventure games like Spider-Man and like Red Dead Redemption 2 coming up. So they've broken down that wall of being that one-game guy and have moved on, which is a commendable thing. One of the best things I ever did was moving to a more variety model where you played what made you happy. Is that necessarily indicative of bad news for MLB The Show? No, not necessarily. I'm sure if you ask the guys at Sony and the guys at SDS, do we wish more people were streaming our game right now? Well, yeah, obviously, because it's free advertising. It's free advertising for them when people are streaming their game. Now, things that are problematic for the community is that the largest gripes are coming from their money-making mode Diamond Dynasty. People are upset with the content, and they're rightfully so. The content for this year has been atrocious. Everyone thought the introduction of the Immortals was cool, but then the fact that you could get them all in June, and they haven't released any better content since, they put themselves behind the 8-ball. The same way they put themselves behind the 8-ball last year with Ken Griffey. And I will go on the record again, they made a mistake with Ken Griffey. They had the one card you needed to get Ken Griffey, and they released it in July. Nobody was going to beat Ken Griffey. Now, there were 99s that came out subsequently, but once people had Ken Griffey, they were like, well, the game was built around him, so we're moving on. This year, they released an entire suite of 99 overall Immortals, the best players you could get in the game. We knew they were going to be the best players you could get in the game. Well, everyone's been able to have them now for 2.5 months. And the content that they keep releasing are 90 and 91s and 94s and nothing that anybody's going to use. It's not a good strategy. I get it. I get it. You want your content out there before Madden comes out, before NHL comes out, before NBA comes out, and people move on. But the people who are still playing MLB are disgusted with the content. You can't find anyone who's going to say anything positive about it. Not to mention the fact that the game suffers from a major online disconnect issue right now that has been widely reported, has been going on for weeks, and has gone unaddressed. MLB The Show released patch 1.14 today without a single mention of online stability. much to the chagrin of, again, the hardcore users who are still playing the game. I tuned into This Week in MLB The Show last night to watch what I feel was going to be their premiere episode of the season with a triple header in the Thunderdome. I was excited. I lurked in the chat quietly. 2 out of the 3 games suffered disconnects. The game is not in a good spot right now. It really isn't. Will people flock back to the game the last weekend in March when it comes out again? You're damn right they will, because it's the only baseball game in town. It still provides a very good experience, but you can't keep having experiences like this. Servers continue to be a problem year after year, and damn it, Sony, it's September. The game's been out for 5.5 months. Get it together. Just because you have a monopoly on something doesn't mean you can keep putting out a substandard product and expect people to buy it. Everybody knows the worst kept secret in sports video games is that EA would love to make a baseball game again. Probably has an exploratory team together working on what the game would look like and you know where their footprint would be. And you know that EA has a long track record of building successful card collecting modes. The one thing that MLB The Show has banked their game on. So should it ever come a time where the MLB license becomes available and EA is able to get in on that, where they're able to make a baseball game, whether it be for the Xbox, whether it be cross-platform, whatever, MLB The Show is in big trouble. Do I fully expect for them to bounce back with a strong, solid MLB The Show 19 effort? Honestly, I don't know. Because I feel like a broken record. I feel like we had this conversation after MLB The Show 16. I feel like we had this conversation after MLB The Show 17. We're having this conversation again after MLB The Show 18. Where does the game go from here? We're still talking about server issues. We're still talking about content. We're talking about people dominating the game with Phil Necro. We're talking about hitting. It's an online experience that we keep coming back to when we do postmortems of these games. And we just don't know where it goes from here. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to pre-order the game. I'm going to have it ready to go, the full-on MVP edition, whatever it is. I'll be ready to go for opening day. But just like with MLB The Show 18, I'll have no problem giving it up in April if I think the product is not what I want, which is exactly what happened this year. The Diamond Dynasty experience for me was not well done. They went, as I feared, too big, too soon. They added too many things and really, really pushed out the casual users. And for the more hardcore users, once the Immortals became available, it left them nothing to grind for. So congratulations, Sony, because you alienated both sides of the Diamond Dynasty community. The casuals and the hardcores. That's an impressive feat. Do I still have faith in the Sony San Diego team and what they're capable of doing? Absolutely. Again, I feel like MLB The Show 19, has that potential. I think they've learned a lot in the last 3 years. But at the end of the day, with Papa Sony pulling the strings, how much are they going to actually be allowed to fix? How much are they going to be actually allowed to spend to test and get this game to where it needs to be? Honestly, those are questions that we will not be able to answer until we have that game in our hands. But I can tell you unequivocally for a fact that unrest in the community is at an all-time high. It's been that way for a couple of months now, since I would say maybe August. There's literally nobody streaming the game, which cuts away a lot of their, again, free advertising that they rely upon so much. And the creators have no problem saying, I don't enjoy the game, it's not fun, I'm playing things that I enjoy and that are fun. That's not a good look for America's pastime, for the only baseball game that people play on a mass regular basis. And I don't want to seem like I'm that big negative voice. I'm not trying to drive negativity in the community. I've said it before. I say it again. I love MLB The Show. I will buy it next year. But there are troubling signs. There are black clouds that have started to form over this product. And they are black clouds that, with 3 or 4 or 5 minor adjustments and maybe 1 or 2 major adjustments, they could dissipate. The formula is there. The community feedback is there. Again, the determining factor is, will Sony listen? So now let's segue right in to the last part of our show today, which is, I've made myself a list of 5 ways I feel like the show can improve their franchise mode. Now, caveat before we get into this, Franchise Nation. You're not going to hear me say 3-team trades. You're not going to hear me say hot dog prices. These are actual, real things that I feel like would contribute to a better franchise mode. If you disagree with me, jump in the comments down below. Tell me why. Tell me what you think would be better additions. But for me, I feel like while most of these probably won't happen, these are 5 additions that the show could make to franchise mode that would elevate it to the next level. Number 1, personality in free agency and scouting. We talked about this earlier with NHL. Free agency and scouting has no personality in MLB The Show. It's basically, you scout a guy, you get, some reveals on what his card looks like. There's no personalities involved. There's no fit. There's no personalities in the room. There's no anything like that that affects your team in any particular way. I know there's a minor morale system, but in free agency, it's basically you pick a guy, you click on him, and you make him an offer. And he maybe accepts, he maybe doesn't accept. Personality goes a long way towards adding to the longevity of a franchise and someone's willingness to play multiple seasons. I don't know exactly how you add personality in free agency and scouting. Maybe being a little more... So, for example, instead of just having a scout a guy, scout him for specifics. So, send him to watch a game, meet with the guy. Not just, hey, scout him. Hey, go watch him play a 3-game series, which will help you unlock some in-game attributes, such as, power, contact, whatever. Have him go meet with the kid, which will take more time and effort from your scout, but that will give you insights into things like his awareness, his durability, for example. Is he a hard player, whatever. Have some sort of attitude, or, you have 25 players on a major league roster. Why can't we have programmable attitudes that if you have too many people who disagree on something, it can affect your team negatively? I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I'm saying there has to be a way to make free agency and scouting a more personable experience that will allow you to feel more attachment to these players beyond the name. Beyond, hey, I want Clayton Kershaw because he's Clayton Kershaw. Maybe you get the next Clayton Kershaw in the draft. Maybe you draft a guy in the 3rd round that you're really excited about because you were able to scout his bat, and then you were able to meet with the kid and, see that he has a really good work ethic and things like that. Like, again, I don't know if I have all the answers. Maybe you guys can give me some good suggestions down below in the comments, but I feel like it would go a long way. Number 2, and this is an obvious one, people have been asking for this forever, in-season contract negotiations. Is this really that hard to put in the game? Let me negotiate with my star players in season before they get to free agency, before we get to that 5-day window at the end of the season. Why is this something we don't have? This one is an easy fix, Sony. Put this in the damn game. In-season contract negotiations, because then if I can't re-sign player X, then then I'll trade him. That doesn't seem like a hard concept to me. Community's been asking for this for a long time. In-season negotiations, get it in there. International free agency. in both the midseason and the end of the season. Bring me in some more dynamic international free agents. Again, is it really that hard of a concept? Have some players, have a pool of 15 or 20 or 30 or whatever that are, that range from, terrible to unbelievable, and just have them randomly pop into my franchise at various intervals. I don't need a posting system and all that. Just put them in the free agency pool. Let me deal with them that way. I don't need a big to-do, but it's something that, again, I think would be a cool wrinkle. It plays such a huge part of Major League Baseball. Again, with guys like Masahiro Tanaka, Ichiro, and I mean, those are just the first two that I thought of off the top of my head. It happens all the time. Ohtani, for example. Have that intrigue of, hey, we've got this guy. He's coming from Japan. We don't know anything about him other than the little bit of information we have. Let's give him $50 million over 5 years. Again, personality, intrigue. Also, the international free agency signing period for youngsters in, when does it start? In July or August? July. It's July. Get that implemented. Allow you to build your minor leagues in another method other than the draft. That's 3. Number 4, this is one that people have been roaring for. And I'm going to mention it because I think it would be like the addition to end all additions to MLB The Show's franchise, but I don't feel it's very likely, and that is expansion and relocation. We get it in Madden, we get it in NHL, we get it in NBA 2K. They are fun things that we all enjoy. The NHL one is very, very well done, in my opinion. I don't have a lot of experience with the NBA one, but from what I've heard, it's well done. And the Madden one is an acceptable experience. I think it needs a little bit of a revamp, but that's another topic for another podcast. Expansion and relocation. This is one of those ones that I'm pretty sure Major League Baseball puts the kibosh on. Major League Baseball says, we don't want that. That's a hot button issue. But it would be the single most welcomed addition to the show's franchise mode. Not even close. It would be absolutely welcomed with open arms. The ability to relocate your franchise. Even just that, the ability to relocate your franchise, pick from, one of 5 custom created stadiums. Now, I know everybody says it takes, X amount of hours for them to make a stadium. Take some of the already created minor league stadiums and bring them up to 40,000 seats, and away you go. Have 5 different MLB stadiums to pick from. Again, do I think it's likely we're ever going to get expansion and relocation? Unfortunately, folks, I don't think it's likely. I'd love to see it. I'd do a backflip if they said it was in. But it's one of those things that I feel like is a pipe dream that we're probably never going to get. And last but not least, and again, this is a small one that, to be honest, I can't believe it's not in. But it's league evolution. So what I mean by league evolution is your league evolving without you having to prompt it to. So you're in 2020, the end of the season comes, you get a pop-up. All of a sudden, the American League has abolished the DH, which could happen. All of a sudden, the 10-day DL is abolished, and it's a 17-day DL now. All of a sudden, the max roster size goes from 25 to 26. Now, these are all things that happen in out-of-the-park baseball. And they add such a level of rush to, when you get that pop-up saying, oh my geez, we have 26 roster spots now. What can I do with that one spot? Am I going to carry an extra bullpen arm? Am I going to carry an extra bench? Oh, the DL has changed. It changes the way you manage your team. If somebody's hurt for 7 days, you're probably less likely to put them on the DL then, which means you don't get to free up that spot, which means you have to manage what you have. Again, this seems like something that would be very easy to do. Have some pre-programmed parameters. Obviously, you have the option to turn it off if a user would prefer not to play with it. But have 10, 15, 20 pre-programmed parameters and have them occur randomly. You know, maybe they abolish the 60-day DL and make it a 90-day DL. Maybe they abolish that when you go on the 60-day DL, it comes off the 40-man roster. I don't know, this is all spitballing. But the point is we should have league evolution. Again, it adds more personality and management options to your franchise. It seems like something so easy to do, but it's something that they don't do. So anyway, those are my 5 suggestions on ways I think that the MLB The Show crew could improve their franchise mode. Again, the comments are open down below. Jump in them. Let me know what you think. Tweet me at SnaggleJ if you prefer to go the more direct, in-my-face method. Keep it constructive, though. Negative comments I won't respond to, but feel free to disagree with me in a constructive way. Anyways, guys, that is going to do it for the premiere episode of the Virtual Athlete podcast. As I just said previously, follow me on Twitter at SnaggleJ. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram at SnaggleJ, and on Twitch too, where we live stream 2 to 3 times a week, twitch.tv/SnaggleJ. You can head over there. Join the Snaggle Club. We're going to be doing one of these every week. If you're listening to this on YouTube, which is currently the only place to listen to it, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that little bell and enable all of your notifications. But that's going to do it for me. I'm Chris Jardine, a.k.a. SnaggleJ. Thank you for listening to the premiere episode of the Virtual Athlete podcast. And until next time, peace.